storyteller.
My name is Arthur, and I've been driving a taxi in London for over 20 years. This job has shown me everything, from boisterous parties to late-night conversations about everything under the sun. I'm a pragmatic man. I don't believe in ghosts or superstitions. For me, the streets of London are concrete roads and traffic lights, not havens for spirits. But there was one night ride, a simple one, that completely changed my mind and still haunts me to this day. That night, it was pouring rain, around 2 a.m. I was driving on Euston Road, preparing to head home, when I got a call from dispatch. The pickup location was a small alleyway, tucked deep in the Bloomsbury area, near an old cemetery. I frowned a bit. That area was typically deserted and a little creepy at night. When I arrived, I saw a young woman standing under an awning, wearing a thin white dress, her long hair almost completely covering her face. She was very pale, trembling in the cold. "To St. Pancras Hospital," she said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. I nodded, and she quietly got into the back seat. Throughout the ride, the air in the car became unusually cold, even though the heating system was on. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The girl kept her head down, her long black hair concealing her face, and I felt a chilling energy emanating from her. A faint scent, like withered lily, wafted through the car, though I had never smelled it before. When the car reached the hospital gates, I turned around to tell her the fare. "We're here, miss." There was no reply. She remained still, head bowed. I was slightly irritated and gently tapped the partition glass. "Miss, we're here." Suddenly, the girl slowly lifted her head. My eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. I shivered. Those were not the eyes of a living person. They were completely white, with no pupils or irises, just a milky, lifeless white. Her face was as white as a corpse, and her lips moved without making a sound. Yet I clearly heard a cold whisper in my head. "You'll be next." My entire body stiffened, cold sweat breaking out. I couldn't move. When I managed to compose myself and looked in the rearview mirror again, the girl was gone. The back seat was empty, but the freezing cold and the scent of lily were still there, thicker than ever. I quickly got out of the car, opened the back door. No one. The seat had a wet mark, as if someone had just sat there and vanished into thin air. I didn't dare stay there for another second. I sped away like a madman, my heart pounding in my chest. The next morning, still in shock, I recounted the story to a police friend. He just shook his head, saying I must have been too tired, but I knew what I saw. Afterward, I researched St. Pancras Hospital and the nearby cemetery. I discovered that many years ago, a young girl committed suicide nearby, and she was found in a white dress. I'm no longer the atheist Arthur Lewis. Every time I work a night shift, especially when driving through Bloomsbury, I always feel a shadow sitting behind me, and I can smell the withered lily. That night ride didn't just take a special passenger to her destination. It opened a door I never wanted to look through. Richmond Park in London is one of the city's largest and most beautiful parks, famous for its free-roaming deer and vast green spaces. I, Emily, a nature lover, often came here for early morning runs or evening strolls. I always considered it a peaceful oasis in the bustling city. There were rumors of children's cries or flickering shadows in the deep woods of the park at night, but I always thought they were just urban legends. Until one night, when I decided to take a long walk through the forest, I heard an unmistakable sound, a cry that has haunted me ever since. That night, I was feeling a bit down, so I decided to take a long walk in Richmond Park, venturing deep into the less traveled trails. It was late, and the atmosphere became eerily silent, with only the rustling of wind through the leaves and the chirping of insects. I had my headphones on, but I still heard a very faint sound like a child crying. I took off my headphones and listened carefully. The crying was clearer, faint, choked, like the sound of a child lost in the dark. My heart pounded. I knew there couldn't be any children here at this hour. I tried to reassure myself, thinking it was an animal, but the crying became clearer, and it carried an extreme despair, an indescribable anguish. I felt a sudden cold rush of air, even though it wasn't cold. I tried to walk faster, but the crying seemed to echo right beside my ear, and I felt as if someone was following me. When I reached an area with ancient oak trees, their gnarled branches reaching out like ghostly arms, the crying intensified, turning into sobs, agonizing whimpers. I looked up at the largest, oldest oak tree. Suddenly, I saw it. From a low branch, not far from the ground, a blurry, small shadow, shaped like a child, was perched, huddled. The shadow had no clear color, just a dense black mass blending into the darkness. But I could feel its presence, a cold and heavy energy emanating from it. I stared at the shadow, not daring to blink. Then, the shadow slowly lifted its head, and I saw a pair of dark, pupil-less eyes staring directly at me. It didn't blink, and those eyes held infinite sorrow, a suppressed resentment. The faint crying echoed once more, but this time it was no longer a child's cry. It was a cold whisper, reverberating in the air. "Mommy, I'm so cold." My entire body was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I wanted to scream, to run away, but my feet were nailed to the ground. The shadow on the tree slowly extended a bony arm towards me, as if to touch me. I let out a blood-curdling scream, turned and ran for my life, not daring to look back. I ran straight out of the park, gasping for breath, drenched in cold sweat. I don't know how I ran, only that when I got home, I was almost unconscious. After that night, I never dared to go to Richmond Park at night again, and I always avoided the deep trails in the forest. The child's crying, the shadow on the tree, and the whisper, "Mommy, I'm so cold," have haunted me to this day. I truly experienced the presence of a trapped child spirit, a soul that was not at peace, perhaps having died tragically in that forest. Richmond Park, once a symbol of peace, is now a terrifying place for me, a place where I believe spirits still wander, seeking release or simply wanting to haunt the living. My name is David Chong, a seasoned park ranger at Yosemite National Park, California. I've worked here for over 15 years, traversing every nook and cranny of this vast wilderness, from majestic peaks to deep canyons. I've witnessed everything, from forest fires to rescuing lost tourists. I am a man of the forest, believing in nature and its laws, not in wild tales of ghosts or mythical creatures. However, there was a mysterious disappearance and death that occurred in a remote area of the park, related to a black hole rumored to swallow people, which completely changed my beliefs. A few years ago, a group of 3 young tourists mysteriously disappeared while hiking in the northern part of the park, an area less traveled and with rugged terrain. I led the search team. After several days, we only found their backpacks and some personal belongings, but no trace of the tourists themselves. The search lasted for weeks, but yielded no results. The case was classified as missing persons of unknown cause. However, there was a strange detail. One of the missing tourists had left behind a travel journal. The last page of the journal contained only a scrawled line, seemingly written in panic. The Holites calling my name Black Deep Endless. I asked local residents and older rangers. They all mentioned a legend about a deep black hole, said to swallow lost souls, located deep in the dense forest to the north. I initially scoffed, dismissing them as folktales. A year after the disappearance, I was assigned to inspect a new trail in that very area. As I ventured deep into the forest, I suddenly felt a strange coldness. The air became thick, and the wind whistling through the trees sounded like whispers. I felt an invisible pull drawing me forward. I followed my instinct, and then I saw it. It was a hole, not too large, but completely black, unfathomably deep, with no visible bottom. No trees or bushes grew around it, and the ground around it looked barren and dead. From the hole, a chilling cold air emanated, and I heard faint whispers, like many people talking at once, coming from deep within. The whispers were indistinct in content, but they carried a strange invitation, an irresistible allure. I felt my mind become hazy, wanting to step closer. Just then, I heard a blood-curdling, desperate scream emanating from deep within the hole. It was the scream of an adult man, and I could feel the extreme horror in it. After the scream, a blurry, tall black shadow slowly rose from the hole, glided across its mouth, and then vanished into thin air. The freezing sensation and the whispers also disappeared. I was frozen in place, my hands and feet trembling. I knew I had seen something terrifying. I didn't dare stay there for another second. I turned and ran for my life, not daring to look back at that black hole. After the incident, I reported it to my superiors, but they dismissed it as delusions due to stress. However, I know what I saw. That black hole is not a normal geological phenomenon. It is a gateway to another dimension, or a place where trapped souls reside. The disappearance of the 3 tourists and their mysterious deaths now had a chilling explanation. Yosemite National Park, which I once considered a paradise, now holds a terrifying secret, a black hole that remains, waiting for its next victims, and its whispers will continue to echo in the darkness. I believe there are things in this world that science cannot explain, and we can only perceive their existence through strange deaths and supernatural phenomena.